the screen. Right. My name is Angela Piedad Suarez Torres. I'm the course director of International Negotiation Strategies. I belong to Centro Zona Boyacá, and I live in Duitama. Today is the 25th of February 2025. I'm professional on international relations from Universidad del Rosario. I'm specialized on European studies from Universidad del Rosario, and I have a master's degree on international politics from Newcastle University in the United Kingdom. The course plan for today, we have the presentation already done, international negotiation, global strategies, internationalization theories, international negotiation phases and tactics, and cultural considerations in negotiation. And at the end, we're going to have some feedback. I have the camera off because I think that if I put it on, the presentation is gone. Well, the international negotiation in general is a process where the parties from different countries aim to reach a mutual beneficial agreement. In this case, in the case of our course, we're always thinking about international business, but sometimes when we are familiar with business, some of the strategies that we are going to develop are based on the local development of the negotiation. One of the elements that is very important to consider in the international negotiation is the cultural element. But as we're going to see, we're going to find another elements that are going to be important. But when we talk about international negotiations, culture is very important to consider when we're thinking to put any of our products or services in another market out of our country. Why it is important the international negotiation? When we consider to internationalize any company, that's what we're looking for, to be successful in the process of international trade for these companies. And also we want to facilitate conflict resolution and partnership building. We have to know very well who is going to deal and to be the referee if we have any conflict in our business in an international level. Because if we think in the national level and local level, we have our legislation and we have those referees that are going to be helping us with the resolution of the conflict. But when we're talking about international negotiations, we also have to know who is going to be this referee on the process. The international strategies, they are methods that companies use to expand into foreign markets. There are some key strategies and some ways that we can go through the internationalization process of the companies. And the first one is exporting. Is very simple when we're considering to export a product, to sell a product. The easiest way is just to sell the good or to sell the service into a foreign market. That's one of the processes that we can do by ourselves. But we can also consider licensing. Licensing is referring to allowing a foreign entity to produce your product. The joint venture is a collaboration with another local firm for shared risks and expertise. So it's a shared positive and negative way because in a joint venture, we're going to have the same risks. If we're going to be successful, we're going to gain. But if we fail, we are going to fail, but and to lose maybe money, time. Not only us, but the other company. But in this situation, we also can gain some expertise. The fourth one is the foreign direct investment. Is to invest directly in a foreign assets on companies somewhere over the world. So I think that at this point you are all familiar with those strategies or ways that we can go through an internationalization of any company. Remember that we're always talking about goods and services. Global strategies is a comprehensive approach to compete into the international market. In this case, there are some types of global strategies. So the first one talks about the global standardization, which means that we are offering a uniform product globally. One example is Apple. Well, there is no difference between buying an iPhone in the UK or China or Japan or Africa or Latin America. It's the same product offered in the whole world. There is no change. But if we think about localization, which means tailoring a product to fit the local references, it is more common to consider this with restaurants like McDonald's or maybe coffee shops like Starbucks, because they have to adapt to the regional menus, the tastes of the people. So if we're considering an example, McDonald's, it's hamburgers restaurant, but as we should know, in India, people usually don't use to eat meat. So McDonald's, to get into the Indian market, they had to change the menu to make it to fit into the taste of the people. So it's more like a veggie menu, what they have, which means they have to change in some ways the characteristics of the product to put it into this special market, which is India. In the case of Starbucks, they had in the Chinese market, they had to change or maybe to include some other products like teas into the menu that they have, because as we can see in any Starbucks, the main product is coffee. But the tradition in China is more about drinking tea than coffee. Yes, they do drink coffee, but it's very common for people to drink tea anytime in the day. So they had to add this product for the offering, the menu that they had in China. The third type of global strategy is the transnational strategy. This one is a kind of balanced global efficiency and local responsiveness. An example is Coca-Cola. The taste of Coca-Cola is not going to be very, very different from one extreme of the world to the other one. It's soda. It's a dark soda with a typical taste. Maybe sometimes they change the level of sugar. We can feel a bit of difference, but in general is the same product everywhere. So it's a mix of the first two, the global standardization and the localization. But this localization is very soft. It's not very strong change, but it's quite a little bit of change to taste different, but not as McDonald's or Starbucks have to do. So we have these three types of global strategies that are going to be considered in any of the cases that we think that we're going to export or to take the product somewhere in abroad. Internationalization theories. We have three theories that can help us to understand this process of internationalization. And we may identify, if we already have an idea of what we want to do in internationalization process of any company, so we're going to see which of the three of them is going to be like interesting or that we're going to consider in this process. The first one is the Uppsala model, which talks about a gradual internationalization based on market knowledge. This Uppsala model, which was developed by the Swedish researchers Johansson and Balm, in the 1970s explains how firms gradually increase their international involvement, suggesting that the companies often start with limited internationalization and progressively they expand operations and they're gaining experience and knowledge. It means that they don't go very fast on the process of internationalization. They go step by step in the way that they are trying to learn about the culture, about the market. They try to improve the process of internationalization, but it's going to take some time. The firms in this case, they typically begin with exporting, which is like the easiest way to do it, which involves also lower risk and commitment. In the way that they're gaining experience, they may move to another committed forms like joint ventures or the wholly owned subsidiaries. This model emphasizes the importance of acquiring market knowledge. And the companies, they learn about foreign markets gradually, and this knowledge reduces uncertainty and risk. The firms are more likely to enter markets that are similar to their home market due to lower perceived risk. In this case, companies, they try just to decrease the risk that they can have. They just want to learn. They consider this process as a learning process. They're going to gain knowledge through the experience, and this knowledge is going to turn into informs the future international strategies. Like the knowledge is going to design the strategies that they're going to develop for that. So it's going to be step by step and a very slow process. The eclectic paradigm, which has the words ownership, location, and internationalization advantages, which is the center of the paradigm. What they want is they're looking always to pursue foreign direct investment, and this paradigm was based on internationalization theories. What they look is they analyze those three elements: the ownership, the location, and the internationalization advantages. Taking those three elements into account, they take these decisions about how are they going to proceed on this internationalization process. So it depends on the three elements. And the third one is the Porter's diamond. This Porter's diamond has some factors that influence the competitive advantage in international markets. It may talk about the internationalization of the market, the internationalization of the company, or even we can talk about the Porter's diamond when we think about the competitive advantages of the countries into the international market. The elements are the factors of strategies, the structure and rivalry, the related industries, the demand conditions, and the factors conditions. So this diamond analyzes the five elements, those five elements to decide how it's going to develop the internationalization process. So what we can see in these three different theories, models, paradigms are simply options that we can choose when we're going through this internationalization process. What do we want to do? We want to go faster. We want to have deep knowledge of the market. We want to go step by step, or we already know that we just want to export, or maybe we have to consider all the other options like the eclectic paradigm. Maybe if it's very important, the ownership of, if we maybe think about the internationalization advantages with the location and not considering the ownership. In those cases, we're going to choose if we want just to export, or if we're considering strategic alliances, if we want to look for a joint venture, or if we want to establish our company abroad. So those theories help us to decide which is the way that we're going to take. through the process of internationalization of the company. And we have some phases in this internationalization process. The first phase is the preparation. Preparation talks about research, the other party's culture, interests, and negotiation styles. When we're thinking about international negotiation, it means that we already have decided how and what are we going to do in that new market. So in the into when the negotiation process, we already know that our product has the quality to be exported, or that we're going to look for a joint venture. We already know what we're going to do. When we're thinking about the specific process of negotiation in an international scenario, the first thing that we have to do is the preparation. We need to know who is going to be the other party, what is like that cultural profile that they have, what's the interest that they may have in the process of negotiation, and what's the type or style of negotiation that they have, and how are we going to manage it. It is very important, as I was saying at the beginning, when we talk about international, the culture is very important. As I told you before, the examples of McDonald's and Starbucks, and there are so many, that we really need to know how is going to be the relationship that we're going to build with the other party in the process of negotiation. So we have to know beforehand how are they going to manage the situation, what would they look for, and how are we going to deal with it. That's why we continue with the phase 2, which talks about the relationship building. In this point, we have to establish trust and rapport. And how do we do that? In many cultures, it is important building a personal relationship before conducting a business. In the case of Latin America and the Middle Eastern countries, establishing trust may take precedence over negotiation details, which means sometimes it is more important to build a relationship with the other party before we talk about business. In the case of Chinese people, we need to build a relationship before we think about any business, any negotiation. For them, it is very important, so they have this word guanxi, which means relationships. And sometimes when we just studying and learning, we think, no, but that's what they say in the books, maybe on internet, but the reality is going to be more different. And then when you find and you meet a Chinese person and you talk about negotiation, they will talk about guanxi. And they say guanxi is the most important thing if you want to consider business in China. Guanxi is build a relationship. And when you're going to meet for the first time, the people who is going to deal with you the negotiation, they're not going to talk about the negotiation or about the product or about the service. They're just going to ask you about your family. If you're single, if you're married, if you have children, how's the relationship with your children? What's your favorite food? If you like to travel, or what are your hobbies? They want to know more about you. They want to get to meet you, to know who you are, and to establish that relationship, that kind of friendship before any option of talking about business. So the preparation lead us to the relationship building. So we have to find out what is important for the other party. If to build that relationship is very important, or if we can go just through the business. So those are phases very important that we have to be prepared, to have the knowledge, the enough knowledge to start to build that first steps very well. The third phase is the information exchange. which means that we clearly communicate our interests and listen to the other party. That's something that we need to learn really, really good, because sometimes, as we can see in our activities, we can say you have to do this, but if you don't listen very well, you're going to do something different. So it is very important for us in this process to have a clear communication, to be clear with the interests that we have, and also to listen and to understand what the others want to say. If we have to deal with in another language, we must be sure that we have the sufficient skills to be able to express our ideas clearly and also to understand what they're saying. Sometimes we learn, in this case, English in our country, and then we go to find people who speak English with another accent, the Chinese accent, the French accent, um, the South Spanish accent, and it's very, very difficult for us to understand because we learn the Colombian accent. So we also have to be sure that our skills on the language are really good to be able to be clear on our ideas when we communicate with them, but we also have to be sure that we understand clearly what they say. Sometimes in the case of Eastern countries, they know they speak the language, but they also pay a translator to be sure. So I'm hearing the other part is saying this, but maybe there is something that I don't understand. I have translated that is going to help me to get the whole idea very clear. So those are elements that we have to be sure that we manage. The communication is really, really important. And also in the process that we had before about learning the other's culture, maybe in the process of communication, we must be sure that the communication is not just what we write down or what we say, but also the expression of our body. For some cultures, the expression of the body in the process of negotiation is very important, because maybe you're saying something, but with your body you're saying something different. So the body language is very important in those processes. The fourth base, the bargaining: propose terms and counter offers, negotiate. And if you really know the culture, you know if it's possible to bargain or not to bargain, because some people, some cultures, they just say what we think that we want is this, and this, and what we offer is this, and this. And there is no other way to bargain with them. It's just like, this is the offer. If you take it, perfect. If you don't like it like that, it's okay. There is no business. So we must be sure if it's possible to bargain or not. In other cultures, it's very, very common, like in Latin America or maybe in China, in some countries of the Middle East. So we have to be sure if the other party's culture is normal for them to bargain or not. And the last one is the closure, to finalize the agreement and documents all terms. So it means that we need to get all the ideas, the documents, the agreements written, signed, and because that's the only way that we can come to an end, a successful end of the negotiation process. Sometimes we can talk a lot of things, but at the end, if we don't write down the ideas, if we don't write down what we really agreed, that we can lose the opportunity and the business too. And then we're going to fail in our negotiation. There are some tactics in the international negotiation process. Those are the specific strategies that we can use to influence the negotiation outcomes. But we also have to be sure that we know about the culture of the other party to go through those tactics in a good way. Some of the tactics, the first one is anchoring, which means starting with a strong initial offer When we can bargain, we can go through this strong initial offer and we think that we can make changes through the process. The other one is to manage the silence and to understand the silence. Sometimes, if we're in negotiation process and the other party gets silent, we have to get to know what's the meaning of that silence, if it's good or if it's bad. So using pauses to encourage the other party to speak may be useful in some cultures. So it's not like this is the rule and I have to follow it just exactly. No, you have to learn so many things about the other culture to be sure that the tactics and strategies that you're going to use are those that are going to help you. But if you don't know anything about the culture and you think that those tactics are going to help you, you may be in a wrong position. The culture is very, very important. For example, in the case of silence, for some cultures is going to be suspicious, for some other countries and cultures is going to be something normal. So it's very important for us to link all these strategies, tactics, and ideas, processes to the culture, to the traditions. So we need to know really well how is the process of negotiation with that culture in those specific elements. The third tactic talks about concessions, making small sacrifices to build goodwill. It means bargaining, all again. But if it's possible to bargain, you're not going to make those sacrifices just to give to the other who doesn't want to bargain and to consider other options. So you have to be attentive to the strategies that the others are using and to know what they used to do and how they used to manage. And then you can consider those elements. And the last one talks about framing, presenting information to influence perceptions. In this one, of course, means that you really have to be strategic on how you show the information, how you give the information, because in the way that you present your product or your service, you're also selling it, you're also making attractive. But if you go with a plain presentation, for example, if I come with a plain presentation with no images, no color, just white and dark or black, the letters, it's going to be boring. It's not going to be interesting. If you put color, if you put sound, images, movement, that is going to be more attractive. That is going to take you more into the process, into the product, into the service, and then you're going to be to catch by it. But if you don't present the information in a way that you can move the other people, they may just go to thinking something else and they just forget what they're doing in front of you. So always this framing, remember that when you're talking about international negotiation, you're selling and you need to give a good image. And you're every time that you're talking and you're showing something, you're selling. And when you sell something, you have to show to the other party how good is your product or your service. You have to sell it to that person to make sure that the person is going to be catched by it, that is going to be interested on your product and your service, that is going to think, oh yes, that's the one that I need. This one is different, the presentation, that's what I was looking for. So this is very important to consider. And when you get to know the culture, you're going to use elements of the culture to make it more viable, more like the culture. So it's going to be more you're going to get more acceptance. So it is very, very important for you to know the culture and to link every element that I'm talking to you about the strategies and tactics to the culture to make it more viable for the other party. And we come now to the cultural considerations in negotiation, which is very important. Here is the cultural importance or the importance of culture is the understanding of cultural differences which is vital for the successful of the negotiations. It is vital. That word is very, very important. Cultural differences vital for the successful of the negotiations. The culture plays a crucial role in shaping negotiation styles, strategies, and outcomes in international contexts. Understanding cultural differences can significantly influence the success of negotiations. So, if you really get to know the other culture, you're one step ahead in the negotiation process. But if you never learn about the culture, you're failing since the beginning. The cultural values influence the tactics used during the negotiation. As I was telling you, I can talk about tactics, processes, strategies, but if you never link that to the culture, you're losing your time. For example, in a high context, cultures may rely on non-verbal cues and the overall context, while low context cultures may focus on explicit verbal agreements. What I was saying, for some cultures is very, very important the body languages, the body language, what you say. If there is a relationship with what you're talking to them, what you're saying, and what your body is saying. And there are other cultures which just that they just care on what it's written or what you say. If you're moving, if you're not moving, maybe they don't care about it. So it's very important. Different cultures have varying definitions of ethics and acceptable behavior in negotiations. Understanding these values can help avoid misunderstandings or perceived breaches of conduct. For example, for some cultures, there is no problem arriving late to a meeting. For other cultures, it is very delicate to be late for the meeting. In some cultures, if you have the meeting at 5 p.m., you must be there 15 minutes before. For some cultures, if the meeting is at 5, they're going to be arriving at 6, but it's different. So you need to get to know how the other culture manages. Being cultural aware allows negotiators to adapt their strategies and approaches, leading to more successful outcomes. Demonstrating respect for the other culture can foster goodwill and open up opportunities. It is very important to know the culture. If, for example, you know that for the culture it's very important to meet first and to build a relationship, you have to go through that. So the meeting is not going to be held in an office, you're going to meet in a restaurant. And if they want just the traditional Chinese food, then you have to find the best Chinese restaurant that you can have in your area to take them. But it is very important for you to know the culture. The culture. The culture is very, very important. There are some cultural dimensions considered by Hofstede that are very important to know and to manage. The first of them talks about power distance, which means how power is distributed in a culture. There are some cultures that are more plain. Maybe the organizations are plain, so the power is equal for everyone. But there are some that are more pyramidal. So the head is the one who has the power, and the others below, they just have to follow the head. So in the Chinese, in the Eastern cultures, the head decides, but at the beginning of the negotiation, you're never going to meet someone from the head of the company. You're going to meet people from lower levels. And this is how you're going to build the relationship, the friendship, and step by step, you're going to go higher and higher and higher if they consider that they can build a relationship with you, if you are someone they can trust on. So it is very important to know how the power is distributed in a culture. The second talks about, oh, sorry. If we're going to talk about this power distance, the hierarchy, well, It's very important in the process of decision in the negotiations, and the decisions may come from the senior leader, and respect for authority may shape the negotiation dynamics, what I was telling you. The second element talks about individualism versus collectivism. The emphasis on personal versus group interest. Individualist cultures like the United States may prioritize personal goals on decisions, while the collectivist cultures, China and India, they are going to emphasize group consensus and harmony. This can affect how proposals are evaluated and accepted. As I was saying before, in the case of China, which is a collectivistic culture, you're never going to meet the head of the company at the beginning, but you're going to meet some other people. So that's why they talk about the importance of the group consensus and the harmony. If you're starting to meet some people and they consider that it's possible to make business with you, they're going to start to meet, to let you meet the other persons in the company, and it's going to be like a group decision. The decision may be on the head, but is considered what the others may know and learn to know about you. In the other case, which is the individualistic culture like the US, you may meet the head of the company, which is going to take the decision and doesn't care about building a relationship, is just going through the business. So it's more important what the person thinks, because it's a personal decision. Decision of this personal is based on its personal goals regarding its position in the company. So it means, which is very different, to negotiate with an American versus negotiating with an Indian or a Chinese person. The third dimension is the uncertainty avoidance, how cultures deal with ambiguity. So how are they going to build that trust, to that when we talk uncertainty is how they going to build that trust with you. And when we talk about the fourth dimension, which is masculinity versus femininity, we come again to the culture. How is the distribution of emotional roles? How is considered the role of men versus women? In in some cultures, for example, they would prefer straightforward, direct communications. For example, in the United States or Germany, which they goes always to the point of the negotiation. But in other cases like Japan and China, they relied on the subtlety and the context. And misinterpretations can arise if negotiators do not adjust their communication styles accordingly. So we have to know how to communicate, how to get our ideas clear to the other person. How important is this communication process with our language and body language? But the most important thing at the end of each of those dimensions is that we really need to know very, very well the other culture. We really get to know, we need to understand, and we need to study the other culture very, very well. It's the only way that we can consider that we're going to be successful on the process of negotiation. Mastering international strategies and theories enhances the negotiation effectiveness. Understanding the phases of the negotiation will aid in the successful outcome, and applying the appropriate tactics while considering the cultural context can lead to better agreements. But always you have to consider the cultural element. You will always have to go through this element, because maybe you will design a good strategy. Maybe have a good product or service, don't really have the potential that you have in that business, in that market. But if you know anything, if you don't know about the other culture, you're not going to go through a successful negotiation process. You're going to fail in the very important moment that decides the successful of the failure of the whole process. So the negotiation process is based on the knowledge of the other culture. If we don't know anything about the other culture, we have to stop the process of negotiation until we are sure that that we have designed a powerful strategy with excellent tactics that we're going to get through a successful process of negotiation because we know the other party. That's the most important thing. Yeah, you have to remember because you can negotiate, but if you don't know the other one how it's going to manage, you're going to lose your time. Do you have any question until now? I hope that you all understand what I was saying. You've been all very quiet. It is very important for you to understand what I was saying. I'm very happy with the presence of all of you, but you've been very quiet, and I'm quite worried that you understood everything that I was saying. Diana and Denise, they don't have any questions. The other one, the other. Yes, Diana. One of the elements that is very important in this process is to get to know the culture. We can talk about so many examples, but there's one very interesting about exporting mangoes to Germany. When you go to buy a mango to the market, to the local market, most of us here in our context, we go through a yellow mango that is yellow or maybe quite red because it's good for it because it's sweet and it's not that very hard. Well, if you're not looking for mango each, but if you're going for mango like the fruit for a juice or just to eat it like that, most of the times you go to get to a mango line with these characteristics. So there was the opportunity to export mango to Europe, to Germany in special. So they just had the container with all the mangoes. They just sent it to Germany. And when it arrived to Germany, if any Colombian could see the mango was in perfect conditions. But for Germans, it wasn't good because of the quality. It was, for them, it was rotten already. For us, it would be really good. So there is a difference on the taste that we look for a product. For the German one, mango very good for us, very sweet and tender. Is not really good. They just prefer a little bit more beach. So those are tiny elements of the culture that maybe we don't know, and then we're going to fail in the process. That's why I emphasize the importance of the culture, to know everything about the culture for a process of negotiation, for the process of negotiation, but also when we're considering like the market profile, we need to know what is the type of product that they want to get in their market. It's not the same that we want. For example, in South Korea, they like the aguacate, and Colombia, the avocado. Export avocado. Exactly. That's why we have to know what's the type of products that they want and how we're going to manage to export them. So yes, aguacate, it's avocado. So it is very important, and I emphasize, and if you have questions and if you want to learn more about that, you can ask me and I can help you through this. I'm very glad that I have so many students in this web conference. I hope that for the next one I'm going to get a better network. I really hope that you all understand and understood everything that I was saying, that the information is useful for you. And for those who don't have your mark on the first activity, as you've seen, my network is with some troubles, and I hope that tomorrow I'm going to finish all the marking that is my responsibility. So don't worry. In the case that you've done everything that the rubric says, it's going to be okay. So I'm going to do that. I think that tomorrow I'm going to end with it. I have two announcements to make. The first one is that you had already be asked by the program about the survey, a self-evaluation survey for the program, which is very important. So I'm asking you, if you haven't done it, just do it. It's on the forums, it's on the news forums, the link and everything is very important because it's for the processes that the program needs to follow to be okay with the documentation, always with the ministry, and for the process of quality accreditation. So it's very important for us to go through the whole process and to get the feedback that you can give us. So it's very important. Those who haven't done already the survey, please do it. You find it by encuesta de autoevaluación. And the second one is about Prospecta. As you can see, Prospecta is going to be developed this month of May, the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of May in Barranquilla. You're all invited, you're all welcome. So if you can go to Barranquilla, if you live close, of course you should go. But if you live far away, as some of the students in my region or people from the south of the country, which might be quite expensive and difficult for you to go, you can do it online. So you don't have to travel to Barranquilla, which make it a little more expensive. So you can sign up for Prospecta already. If you're going to participate on Prospecta, of course, you have some points in the courses. So those students who want to go and belong to Boyacá and are considering to go to Barranquilla or just to go online, just let me know and I can help you in the process if you have any doubts. So you're all welcome. I don't know if you have any question because you haven't had any questions until now. I just want to make it clear that the course is 100% in English. So I'm going to be also helping or supporting the other teachers with the CPAS because the CPAS must be also in English. Okay, thank you, Marcela. The last word should be explanation. Well, I hope that everything that you're writing on this chat is true, that you've understood everything. I hope the most that I hope is that it's going to be useful for your professional lives. And I really hope that you're going to enjoy this course. Thank you very much for your time. I think that tomorrow I'm going to download the recording and to give it to you. If you want to have any explanation about anything, just contact me through Teams, okay? Okay, Diana, very well. Thank you very much to all of you. Have a good night, and don't worry if you need to contact me through Teams. And thank you for your comprehension, because I had some network problems to connect, but finally we could do it. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening.